Ken's there. Jay's here. All right.
This conference will now be recorded.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. We'll call our select board meeting to order for today, Monday, April 5th, 2021. Please join me for pledge allegiance this time. One nation, God, indivisible, justice for all. You there, Jay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just checking. Do you have any appointments, Chris? No appointments. Okay, citizen participation. Do we have anybody from the audience this time? No? Okay. Not hearing any or seeing anybody. I'll take that as a no at this time. All right. To town administrator. You have the floor, sir. You have correspondence? Yeah, something.
Okay, the first item had to deal with a letter from a resident at 49 Truby Street regarding a tree that she states is infested in front of her property. The issue is this has been an ongoing complaint by the resident of 49 Truby Street. And basically, David has responded again with his letter. And did the board have a chance to read the complaint and the response? Or Glenn, do you need to see it again?
So Dave is saying that the trees are okay. And he need to remove them at this time.
Yes, that's what he's saying. I just want the board to know that this has been an ongoing issue. David has gone out multiple times, and as he indicates in his letter, their initial assessment and the assessment every time they go out has proven itself to be true because the tree hasn't come down. And we've had multiple windstorms that should have knocked the tree down. if it was as infested or as damaged from the ants as the resident claims it is.
Well, again, Dave's gone out there, he's inspected it. He doesn't see a need to take the tree down. I mean, I'm sure if Dave felt at any point the tree was a safety issue or anything, or decaying, that it could come down, would choose to take it down, I would imagine. I can't see him not doing that. So, I mean, again, based on his letter, I don't see what we would do in regards to that. Unless you have anything else, Jen? Jay, any thoughts on that?
No, I think Dave said it very well in his letter and Chris explained it. It's still there.
All right. So that's where we are. So, but again, if they do ask us to go out there again, we'll always go out there and check on it. And, unless something changes, I would imagine it'll stay status quo. Unless something changes, if Dave decides that it's a need to remove the tree at that time. So we'll wait and see.
All right, the next item has to do with a letter from Pathfinder Regional Vocational Technical High School. In the governor's initial House 1, Chapter 70 budget, the governor had put a provision in that he's going to be granting what's called an ESSER 2 grant, which are federal stimulus funds. And basically, in the governor's version, the ESSER 2 funds can be used to offset the minimum local contribution increases. And they can be used to offset the increases in FY22, but they cannot be used unless they're part of the initial or the final state budget that's adopted. Our proposed FY22 assessment from the March 10th, 2021 budget hearing at Pathfinder is $315,194. If we apply if the ESSER 2 money can be applied to it, it would reduce our assessment by $16,856. However, in order for this to be allowed, it must be requested to be implemented by the town. So are we going to want to, if it does get approved and included in the final state budget, do we wish to inform Pathfinder that we want our minimum local contribution reduced by the ESSER 2 funds allocation for the FY22 assessment?
I would say yes. Makes sense to reduce our obligation.
Yeah, that would make sense, right? I'm not missing something here.
Could those funds be used for something else besides for Pathfinder?
What do you mean, Jay?
I mean, are those funds strictly allowed only to be used by Pathfinder, or could the town of Granby use that 16,000 for something else?
No, can only be used towards our minimum local contribution at Pathfinder. We couldn't take that 16,000, have them write a check to us, and then we use it wherever we feel like using it. It has to be applied only for Pathfinder expenses.
Okay, and like Jen said, it's no brainer to me.
Jen, you want to make a motion? Okay,
I was on mute again. So I will move that, oh God, I don't even know what I move right now. I will move that we use the SR2 allocation to reduce our minimum local contribution to Pathfinder, which would result in a savings of $16,856.
is there a second?
If that's approved by the legislator, I agree. It's not gonna be reduced unless it's approved, right, Chris?
Right, the town's gonna accept it. Or,
No, it has to be included in the final budget.
In the final
This is
budget.
just part of the governor's initial House One budget.
Yeah.
If it goes all the way both through the House and the Senate and his budget and that provision is approved by both of them, when they adopt the final state budget, then it's available to us. If it isn't, then it's not available to us.
the town has to say, yes, we do want it. Correct. Okay. So Jay, are you seconding Jen's motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there any further discussion at this time? All in favor?
I,
Aye. All right. Well, hopefully it goes through and we'll save the town a little bit of money. All right, what do we have next, Chris? The electrical inspector letter?
A couple meetings back, I had mentioned to the board or brought to the board's attention a letter from the building inspector. You requested me to contact the electrical inspector, the alternate electrical inspector, for a response to that letter. He did provide that to me. Do you wish to see it, Glenn, or did you read it as part of your packet?
Is that mute? No, I'm good.
So how do you wish me to proceed regarding the electrical inspector and his appointment in that position based upon his response?
All right, so I look at it and reading the response, and it sounds like it was an error, not an intentional error, just based on what that particular person was going through at that time. So I don't think there's any, to me, I don't think there's any malicious intent at that point. So kind of thinking that I don't see a need to do anything with it at this time, unless either Jen or Jay feel different. I'm open to a discussion.
Have there been any other instances where something like this has occurred that we are aware of?
No.
If this is the only one, then I'm going to agree with Glenn that. However, if it should happen again, I think that would be a completely different conversation.
Then I would agree.
Okay, that's fine.
Jay?
yeah, I agree. With all he went through, I don't think he did it on purpose.
All right. All right, then we're all set with that one.
Next one is a text that I had received for our website. Basically, it was, good afternoon. I am an RN with a Hackensack Meridian Health in New Jersey. Approximately 125 nurses have been trained by Marie Shanahan MA BSN RN HN-BC, that's a lot of letters, and Veda L. Andrus EDD MSN RN HN-BC through the Birch Tree Center for Healthcare Transformation in Granby. To thank them, we would like to plant a tree in Granby to honor them and thank them. Is this a possibility on how we would go about this from New Jersey? I think it's a worthwhile request. I'm sure we could probably find a spot, probably at Dufresne Park or at Brown Allison, where a tree could be planted to thank these two individuals for the training that they have been involved with.
I would agree. I think we got plenty of space we can use to. Say that. I think it's a worthwhile place, a worthwhile thing to do. And again, like I said, we have plenty of places available to us to plant a tree. Is that all they're doing, is just to give us a tree? The reason I ask is it'd be nice if we did some kind of like dedication or plaque, something, just so that, you know, that's what the tree, what it's there for, kind of, you know, separated from, you know, other things. You know, maybe a little plaque or something out in front of it or something.
Okay, no, that's fine. I'll get back to this individual and explain to him what the board is asking and trying to get arrangements to get it planted and hopefully some sort of a dedication ceremony scheduled.
Sounds good. All right. Sound good, Jay?
Yeah, we got plenty of room since Dave's already taken down 900 this past year.
All right.
Okay, I have a couple more items than what was listed there. First item is Kathy and I are both receiving our second COVID shot on April 14th. There's been many people who have told us that the second shot, you have a chills, fever, headaches as a reaction to the second shot. The 14th is a Wednesday. I get mine at 9:30 on that Wednesday morning. Kathy gets hers at 4 o'clock that afternoon. And I'm told that the symptoms usually come about 12 hours after. So the question is does the board have a problem that if need be, we close the office on the 15th due to the reactions that both Kathy and I may have as a result of getting the second dose of the COVID vaccine?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're both sick, we'd have to close the office regardless. So, yeah, if you're both sick, you can't come into work. Yes.
I just want to get it out there so people know that we're not just taking time off, but yeah, we are getting our second shot. Hopefully we won't be able to get the reactions that everybody's talking
No.
about.
But if you're sick and you can't come to work, okay, that is what it is. You're sick, and you happen to both be sick at the same time, so be it.
We've been lucky we haven't been, but I'm just letting the board know, that's all.
I don't.
The next item I have is the 1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan Act that was passed on the federal level. Based upon the act, MMA did an estimate of the direct municipal aid for Massachusetts cities and towns. The town of Granby has an estimate of $1,840,000 $743. The problem becomes is nobody really knows exactly how you can spend the money. Okay. When you read the act itself, there are 4 clauses that they say you can spend it on. The first one is to respond to the public health emergency with respect to the coronavirus disease 2019, COVID-19, or its negative economic impacts, including assistance to households, small businesses, and nonprofits, or aid to impacted industries such as tourism, travel, and hospitality. Okay. The second paragraph says to respond to workers performing essential work during the COVID-19 public health emergency by providing premium pay to eligible workers of the state, territory, or tribal governments that are performing such essential work, or by providing grants to eligible employers that have eligible workers who perform essential work. C, for the provision of government services to the extent of the reduction in revenue of such state, territory, or tribal government due to the COVID-19 public health emergency relative to revenues collected in the most recent full fiscal year of the state, territory, or tribal government prior to the emergency, or to make necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. Hopefully, they're going to have some sort of webinar that they can explain exactly what all this means so that we don't spend it inappropriately and then have to repay the money back if we spend it incorrectly.
Well, the last one about infrastructure, what?
Yeah, it says water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure.
3 things we could use. I'm interesting. Well, I'm sure they must have some type of webinar coming up so people understand what the, how to use the money and stuff. Interesting to see and look at our options and go from there.
What is the status of our current water project? I know Chris sent an email in early December to Mass DOT, but I haven't seen anything since then.
Lead, what's happening, Jay, is they're moving forward with their project. As to the question regarding going in front of the Conservation Commission, when we were doing the joint project together, and they were pushing for everybody to get in line so that we could get the joint project together, they did go in front of the Conservation Commission and get, I think, an RDA. I think that's what they got from them. And they're using that for the revised project. And regarding the easement, I had, as part of the project, for us to be able to sign on with them when we were doing the joint project, I had to sign that form about the easement, and they're continuing using that one even with the new revised project.
Even though they dropped us.
Yes, sir.
So basically, we are officially out of their project.
That's everything I'm reading.
Jay, I'd say we were dead in the water, but we don't have water.
Well, I don't see anything from our politicians trying to help us. I would recommend we send a letter to the Baker Polito administration about the issues that we have with both Mass DOT and our politicians on lack of support.
That could definitely be done, but what are we hoping to prove? They're starting this project in a matter of weeks. We cannot get in on it at this point.
Well, say we wanted to extend our sewers later on down the road. It would be nice if Mass DOT would include us on this stuff. or anything else.
100% agree. Totally agree with you, but I think right now it looks like we're done for 5 years.
Well, I still think that, I didn't like the way that, they basically ignored us. And, then they put us out on our own. And, the people from Granby who voted twice by over 2/3 to do it are not gonna get something that they wanted. And it's not our fault that we couldn't have a special town meeting or anything else on it during COVID-19. I mean, if we were the city of Springfield or Chicopee that got mayors that can make things happen, they can do it. Towns like ours can't.
No, I completely agree with you, but I'm wondering if our time would be better served now, planning for what we can do in 5 years. Does that make sense?
The only thing, well, what do you want to do in 5 years?
Well, we have a 5-year moratorium. Once they lay that blacktop, we can't take it up.
You're right,
So
but in
maybe why don't we? I'm sorry, what?
But in 5 years, if you want to do anything to the existing road, then without any in-kind funds, you got to pay it all. They took the in-kind.
No, I know
fund.
that. But that's what I'm saying. Maybe we should put our effort into seeing if we can get the state to help us with that in 5 years, knowing that we have the ability to revisit this. Instead of pointing out everything that they did wrong, maybe if we start asking for what they can help us with going forward, maybe we'll be in a good place.
Well, my honest opinion is, like I stated before, if PVPC can know 2 or 3 or even 4 years ahead of time what's going on, why can't the Mass DOT share the information with the towns and cities like us so we can start planning ahead instead of just giving us a 90 or 120-day notice or something like that?
No, I completely agree with you, but I think it may come down to relationship building. Sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah, well, if you think the Baker Polito administration will be there in 5 years, I don't think that's going to happen.
No, they may not, but hopefully we'll still have some representatives and senators that can help us out.
Well, Mr. Martin said that he, at our 18 June meeting, that he was contacting all our politicians, our representatives, and he stated to us that he got no reply from any of them.
But again, that
Correct.
goes to show relationship. What have we done to build that relationship? Just because we elected them doesn't mean we have a relationship with them.
I can tell you,
If we're not putting forth that effort,
I can tell you, I've gone to every one of their meetings, even when they're in town, out of town. I always had a presence for Granby being there, and we still got nothing out of it. And if you look at the highway department, the safety complex, and the rest, nobody's helped Granby do anything.
well, just because they haven't doesn't mean they can't or they won't. It just means that I think we may need to spend some time building those relationships.
I would agree. And also, I do want to mention, I know Senator Lesser came to us to one of our meetings about a month or so ago. Maybe a little longer, something like that. And he did speak to the project and stuff like that. And did have some options for us to do, but was, I think the options for us were to go to town meeting and ask for additional funding to make it work without the in-kind funds. But I would agree, Jay. I don't think we could put a letter together for the Baker Polito administration and just kind of. I wouldn't go negative about the help, but I think we could definitely put that the concerns that we have just dropping us from a project when, we're a small town, in need of, infrastructure like that. And, there's always such a big push, a big talk about infrastructure, throughout the state and throughout the country all the time. And, at least we can get a letter to them, just let them know really our disappointment, as one of the towns in the Commonwealth. It's just to be kind of dropped from that plan. I don't think it was really fair to us, to give us some type of opportunity to, even make it possible. I think it's unfortunate.
No, I agree with E23. They're doing School Street and up by Route 202. And maybe we could shame them into enough to bring the water down East Street and plug it into Five Corners. Why wait 5 years? I mean, the asphalt hasn't been done on that area yet.
Well, but I think, like I said, I think a letter to the Baker Polito administration doesn't hurt. If anything, maybe to open up a dialogue with us, with them, and we can have a discussion in regards to, potentially what does this mean for us? Is there anything that we can do to help us out, and anything they can do to help us as well? Like I said, as you mentioned, Jay, the town supported it twice for a 2/3 vote, and it's just unfortunate that where we are right now, and it's not obtaining it more or less due to, they say the state and the Commonwealth, but more to the Mass DOT. So, but yeah, I would think, Chris, if you could draft a letter or something like that, and we can go from there or something. We are one of the cities and towns in the Commonwealth. So.
And if you want to know, in 1820, Boston got the first water system installed. So they have a water system for 200 years and we still don't have it.
What else, Chris?
The next item, work has been started on the pavilion at Dufresne Park. They've been going along quite well. We do have a contract out for hopefully getting our picnic tables replaced in a expedient manner. With that being said, we do have people who have been contacting us regarding being able to hold events or rent the pavilion and Dufresne Park for private parties. Does this board wish us to start allowing them to rent or accepting requests for use of the park for their private events, or should we wait a little bit longer?
Well, won't the Board of Health have the final say on gatherings?
I believe the Board of Health will probably want to make sure that we follow whatever the state guidelines are. Now that the governor has mentioned we're going into phase 4, a lot of the parks and stuff are now going to be allowed to be open. However, as long as you follow certain rules and regs. And, I know we have GAA who's been looking at doing stuff with our ball fields. I do know that there is rules and regs to be able to use those athletic fields post-COVID. Okay. Also, there is a amendment to the initial COVID-19 restrictions about the number of people to gather at indoor and private residences and outdoor private residences and gatherings at events and venues in a public setting. I think as long as they can follow those rules and regs and that they're told up in advance that they must follow those, and if they don't, their event could be closed down by the Board of Health. I don't see a reason why we can't. But I still want the board to say, yes, move forward with starting to accept and arrange them. I would like to wait June 1st before we start doing this. Because the pavilion, yes, it has the roof on it and stuff, but I know they have to paint. And I think we have to do some painting and some work on the inside that resulted from some of the water damage when the tree that fell on it punctured the, crushed the roof and punctured it. So we just like to have a little extra time to be able to make sure we can take care of all those repairs too.
Well, I'm all for at least taking the applications.
Makes sense.
And Chris, I read in Jeremy's report, they're starting the electrical wiring in the pavilion. One of the things was going in the FY 21 Green Community application was the lights to be converted to LED over there. Do you know if all the electrical stuff is gonna be converted over there so we could put something else in the application for FY 2021?
I think when the appraiser came out, he's just replacing what was there. They weren't gonna go to energy efficient LED fixtures that you were talking about, Jay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Put Jeremy on it first to really give you a definitive, because I haven't been following it that closely.
Do you want me to send an email to Jeremy, or you want to ask him?
I'll ask him tomorrow and see what he has to say.
Okay, we'll just go through you then.
Chris, can we put the COVID reg with the application so that people know exactly what they're getting into before they send it in?
I think we should. Because that way they can't say they never got them or they didn't know where to go find them, as long as they're included.
Right, well, I know that the current application is a PDF file. Actually, it could be done again, but if we can manage to get it in the same file so that all of it is together and that they have to sign off on the regs. I know, I'm demanding.
And you're echoing all over the place when you talk.
That was,
I think as Glenn's mic was open at the same time.
Yes, we can change the PDF file. And then the final item.
Wait, I know we have to put my 2 cents in. I started, but then I was cut off. But I think we need to let people know too that the potential that, you know, we need to make sure that we're accepting people's rental and they're counting on us to deliver, if you will, that we're ready for them. I don't want to start, you know, taking people's money and then, you know, they're planning to have an event and we're not ready. So. Well, just that the pavilion's ready, everything's all set, you know, there's no, you know, if you know, regardless of the Board of Health or the CDC or anything like that, that's out of our control, but I want to make sure that we're all set, you know, that, you know, someone, you know what I mean? I want someone planning on something, hold an event there, and it's something we did and we're not ready for them. It's kind of like,
As long as we're still in this declared state of emergency, should we get all the applications, should they be run by the Board of Health to get them stamped off, like the school and McDuffie's and everybody else runs everything by the Board of Health before they do it, GAA, everybody else?
well, I think if they meet they meet the guidelines that are set by the state, as far as, you know, outside gatherings and stuff like that, I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure that our end, that we're prepared. So, you know, the picnic tables are there, the electricity is all done. You know, we're not running into delays where someone's planning on having a party and then we have to contact them and say, well, sorry, you know, it's not ready, you know, but that's all. I just want to make sure that we're not, due to any reason that we didn't hold up our part, make sure the place is ready for renting it.
Well, how about we just, when we get an application and we decide it's gonna be approved, if it's approved, just send a copy to the Board of Health as a CC. And that way they can't say they don't know what's going on.
Yeah, we can do that, Jay.
Yeah, I think that would be covering us up.
The issue that why I said wait until June, that's gonna give us 2 months to get everything done, okay? I'll check with Jeremy again tomorrow, if they expect any delays, or if they don't think they can make the June 1st date. The only other issue is right now, the school is using the picnic tables that weren't damaged from the pavilion to serve lunches to the kids during the school week. We would have to get those picnic tables back to us in order to start renting. Or do we want to wait till school closes, get them back, and then start doing events at that point in time?
When does school close?
You talking the April vacation or the final for the summer?
I think final for the summer, isn't it isn't graduation June 12th? So
Right. Right before their graduation.
so
And then we don't know if the school is gonna require the picnic tables for summer school. So that's,
these are just on loan to them, Jay, to help with being able to open up schools 5 days a week so the kids could practice social distancing during lunch. We never made a promise that they could keep them until they felt they were done with them. We were just assisting them during this crisis.
I think we don't do any of those till after maybe like June 15th. Because if we need to have the picnic tables there. You know, the school is using them, they're counting on them, but we couldn't do any rentals, right?
there's no sense doing rentals and spending money for 2 weeks. But then have them to the end of school and let them know that when their regular school term is up, they'll be brought back to Dufrane's Park, and then they can plan accordingly.
Right, and that was my question. So I see no reason, we're allowing the schools to use the picnic tables. I see no reason they cannot be transported back to Dufrane's for a rental and then transported back to the school that following Monday morning. It's a little bit more work on their maintenance, but if they need the tables, I think they'd be willing to do it. We have to look at the overall, it can't just be one department over the other, I'm sorry.
Okay, so who's transporting the tables?
John Sullivan was in charge of getting them and bringing them back to us. So it's something, I mean, I can talk to him about it, but if we need the tables for something that's going to bring us some sort of income, I don't see why they can't be moved back temporarily.
I agree. I mean, they've been using them, and obviously they can bring them back. However, tables that we figure we need, that's what they can bring back and set them up as to where they gotta go. And
When we have outside of that, very big. So we.
Is that Kathy talking?
yes,
That's what I'm saying.
well, here's the question though too. So, that's not our responsibility. That is whoever is renting it. That is their responsibility. So that's what they got. Whoever's renting it has to adhere to whatever the at that time, the rules are by the state, so. And so with that said, if we need all the tables brought back, then all the tables gotta come back. I mean, that's, you know, because if that's, you know, someone saying, well, okay, I'm renting it, prior to the state, that people have to be 6 feet apart or whatever it is at that time. They figure out how many picnic tables they have and the distance that someone has to sit, and that's what we gotta look at. And then, you know, we have to require from them to bring them back.
And I honestly don't think they'll have a problem with that. I mean, they are grateful that they're able to use them. So I don't think 1 or 2 weekends of moving them back and forth is going to be an issue.
Okay. Take care of that, will you?
I was going to say that being, do you want me to tell them?
We can have Chris just reach out to them. Tell them.
So poor Chris gets to be the bad guy for my suggestion. I'm sorry.
He's not the bad guy. He's the one that said they can use them in the first place. And you know, so he let them. I mean, they've been using it, so we just gotta try to you know, help out people that want to rent the nice facility for rentals. Yes.
And, great.
Someone sits in the back of the room. You have a lot to say. But go on.
Well, is that okay? For training, you want to, soccer practice under 8 after 4 p.m. From March 20th to July 1st. They had also asked to buy the large room, but no, on that. That's not rent out. Also asked for, a softball practice, third field, from practice, weeknights 5 to 8, Saturday 9 to 4, Sunday 9 to 4. And asked for baseball fields, running to, at, training from 10 to 30.
Again, all we have to say is they have to follow the state guidelines regarding standards for parks, safety standards for parks, open space, and outdoor education programs, phase 4, step 1. That was issued March 22nd, 2021. Because it talks about parks and open spaces, athletic fields, talks about picnic areas and grills, trash disposal and recycling, public restrooms, talks about non-commercial dog walking, dog parks, community gardens, and outdoor educational programs. Talks about every one of those, and it's outlined by a directive from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So as long as they're willing to abide by those guidelines, they have to understand it's up upon them to follow the rules and regs. It's not up to us to enforce them. We'll include the regs along with any application, but yet it's up to them to make sure that they're followed.
Brown hours, from, now until July 1st, for, the back area ground house and large soccer field and front area small soccer field.
I don't have a problem with Brown Ellison. It's not like it's a well-used park where we're going to run into conflict. It's mainly our GAA fields anyway. So if they're going to have one, it makes sense to let them use all 3.
You know, and what else actually goes on there? No one else really uses that, the fields out there. I mean, people use it to walk around and stuff like that, but that's not gonna be, that won't conflict with that.
So I think maybe we should clarify that our approval is contingent upon the Board of Health agreeing to it.
Yeah, well, they have to, yeah. I would think so, right. All right. Chris? Else? Thanks, Dale.
Again, the Board of Health believes that as long as they follow the guidelines as set by the state. So it's up to them to make sure that they're following whatever the set guidelines are. Wearing masks, practicing social distancing, you know, as long as they practice those, I don't see a reason why they can't. And if they don't, then if someone comes in and shuts them down, it shuts them down.
I agree. I mean, other towns are doing it too, so people just got to follow the guidelines that are set. So they can't have them while they follow the guidelines.
I don't know necessarily that I want to follow other towns, but I will follow what our Board of Health decides. So if they're gonna say it's fine, then who are we to say differently?
Well, but I mean, what I'm saying is other towns are allowing their residents to do it. So I think in that, you know, as long as the guidelines allow it to happen, I don't think we should stop it from happening. So. So the guidelines are already set for it, so. But yeah, makes sense. Great. Chris, anything else? Kathy? All right, moving on to departmental reports. Anybody have any questions, concerns, comments regard to the departmental reports?
I'm fine.
Jen? Is there a second?
I second department reports, if that's what she said. I can't read her lips because I can't see them.
I move to accept the departmental reports.
I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, there we go. All right, how about we approve and sign maintenance warrants?
You have three warrants in front of you. You have warrant number 59 dated March 26, 2021, in the amount of $445,597.89. That is a bill paying warrant. You have warrant number 60 dated April 2nd, 2021, in the amount of $420,959.15. That is a payroll warrant. And you have warrant number 61 dated April 2nd, 2021, in the amount of $178,640.60. And that is the maintenance warrant that goes along with payroll warrant number 60.
Sorry, I was having a hard time unmuting for some reason. Am I unmuted? Okay, because I can't hear myself.
You are unmuted.
Okay, thank you. In that case, I'll move to accept fiscal year 2021 warrants number 59, 60, and 61.
I'll second that.
All right, thank you, Jay. Thank you, Jen. Any further discussion at this time? No? All in favor? Aye. Good. Jen, you're muted. Did you say aye?
Was I really muted?
Okay. Next, we have the Granby Fire Department rules and regulations draft. Chris, this is for our review, right? You gotta take your mask off to hear me.
No, actually, I was texting
Um,
the gentleman, so,
so this is just for our review, the,
yes. Just like when the police department
did theirs, yeah.
reads
Okay.
rules and regulations, the
All right.
board has 30 days to approve them.
Okay.
This is a set of rules and regulations for the fire department. When interim chief Paul Cherwinski was hired, he noted that we did not have any said rules and regulations in the fire department, so he went about drafting a set for the board of selectmen's approval.
So if the board members can review them, take a look at them. Probably talk about our next meeting. Do you have any concerns, comments that we can bring up with the chief at that time?
I've already reviewed them.
Well, I guess I'm gonna take time to review them for our next meeting. That's okay.
That's fine. For 30 days.
When's our 30 days?
I would say from today.
I like what you say, Jay. I'll go with that. That's correct.
It was first presented us to today, and we got 30 days to do it, so common sense makes it 30 days from today.
All right, sounds good. So, I'll have a feedback at our next meeting, if any. All right, annual elections, warrants, hours. It's always a fun topic for me.
Basically, there was a letter addressed to the Granby Select Board and myself from the town clerk regarding the polling hours for the May 17th annual town election, and a vote taken by the Board of Registrars on changes to Chapter 5 of the Acts of 2021. Regarding the changes of Chapter 5 of the Acts of 2021, to continue to follow the governor's policies for public safety by having the voters and poll workers practice social distancing, wearing masks, and sanitizing hands and equipment throughout the election day. To encourage early voting by mail, the Board of Registrars' recommendation is to do a postcard mailing to all households. The postcard should include the information on where to download an application for early voting and to include the election date, place, and times of the polling hours. The board also recommends that a robocall be delivered the weekend before the town election, reminding voters on the election and polling hours. The town clerk indicated that she has a quote for a two-sided postcard for 2,500 households. The price for the postcard is $225. The cost of mail would be $900 for a total cost of $1,125. If the board feels that this is too costly, then the Board of Registrars recommends that 3 robocalls be delivered to the residents The calls would inform the voters on the date of the town election, hours of the polls, and how to do early voting by mail. Whichever way is decided, it's imperative that the voters and residents fully understand the voting process. The other vote taken by the Board of Registrars is the Board of Registrars feels responsible to protect the public. The safety comes first. We're still in a COVID pandemic. The registrars feel that the polling hours of 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. is a fair amount of time for any voters that wish to vote in person. Students will be settled into their classrooms by 10 a.m. and the social distancing will be much easier to handle at that time of day. And with the opportunity to early vote by mail, the registrars feel that the 9 hours for in-person voting is enough time for the polls to be open. The town clerk hopes that the board will consider the above registrar's suggestions to promote the early voting by mail, the election, and the hours of the polls.
I personally have no problem agreeing to what the voting registers have said in their letter. I would agree with them as far as that. The only thing I think we should make clear, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, the only early voting will be by mail. It will not be in conjunction with the old library. Am I correct?
That's my understanding, right? Because it's not a state or a national election. So the early voting wouldn't be at the library like we've done for that in the past. This is just early voting, it's just by mail.
I just want that to be clear to all the people too, that unlike the last election when we had early voting by mail and physically in the old library, I believe this time it's going to be early voting by mail only, if I read those letters correctly. Which I have no problem with.
Yeah, I think that's fine, especially if people have an opportunity if they wish to vote by mail. You know, they can do it that way. I like the idea of 3 robocalls. I don't know if we need to actually spend the money for the postcards. I think the robocalls are more effective.
And I see the robocall is only if you signed up for it.
Right. How much do the robocalls cost us? 0? Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. But yeah, you have to sign up for them, I believe.
Yes, you do. A lot of people have given up their old Granby telephone service and gone on to the smart or cell phones. And if you don't sign them up, you don't get it. And it's on the town's website, how to sign up. Right, Chris?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Maybe just maybe start putting the sign out there in front. Start, the voting day, sooner the better. I just don't know if it's worth spending $11, $12 to send out postcards. Because a lot of people don't even, to get the postcard, they may not even do anything with it. So I think if we can start advertising it, at least when we mention it, we can mention it in our meetings to remind people of it. But if they can put up the sign out like they usually do, voting coming up with a date.
Yeah, but if you look at how many people actually view our meetings, it's not too many.
Yeah, but I think, at least it's being said and people are talking about it and the sign's out there, it gets it on people's mind. They drive by and the earlier that sign gets put out there, the better off it'll be.
Oh, I don't disagree with that at all, but they want to send out a postcard. I don't see a problem with that either.
No, I don't see a problem. I just don't see it as it's effective to spend $1,200 to send out postcards.
I see this town spend a lot more money wastefully than that.
Well, I'm sure you have, but I'm trying not to spend wastefully money. That's the point. That's kind of the point I'm making. So, when the turnout's usually roughly about 13-14%. And it's never really changed much over the past, I don't know how many years. Usually
It
people
changed,
that vote.
it changed immensely by mail, according to Kathy.
Well, that, I mean, I'm talking about our local town elections. They've always kind of remained the same,
No, we've never done them by mail yet.
so. But that's just my thing, I mean, I don't know, I don't see a need to. Just for us down to spend the $1,200 to send out postcards, so.
No, I'm in favor of the robocalls as well. I have a question about the hours. I'm assuming that the school has been notified of the potential because with COVID, there's been extra lunches added, so they're also using that area, that stage above the cafeteria. Are they going to have to make alternate arrangements to take those students from that spot to keep us socially distant? That's what I'm asking. Has the school been notified of our potential hours? Do we know?
I don't know that for.
Okay. Well, that's something that we really need to do, but I'm in favor of the hours as well.
It's okay, baby, I'm fine with it.
Okay, just so I have it straight. You're agreeing to the polling hours, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. That we might need to check with the town clerk that the school has been notified of the date and the hours. And regarding the notification to encourage early voting, you want a sign put up along 202 in addition to robocalls, or what was the final determination on that?
Yeah, I think the sign, they did have that, the sign they put up there in town election, early voting by mail, that way that people see it.
You want to add the sign by the highway department to say it too? On Crescent Street, and we put all those other notices on.
The land is, Conway, but we haven't signed up. But we
Yeah.
If anybody wants to know, if anybody's listening remotely, they don't have any idea what you're saying.
I quit with the microphone today. I said, if we can get as many as we can deploy out into the most visible areas, then I'm confident and comfortable with the decision to not send postcards. I think the robocall is the way to go, given our local turnout. And if we can say we've done our due diligence by getting them into our most visible areas.
I would agree.
I'll talk to the town clerk about it.
Okay. Great. That'll be helpful too, for moving into the future, not just the robocalls. A lot of places, they send out text messages now. So, you don't get just a robocall, you get a text message. So as long as you sign up for it, you can check off, yes, you'll accept the text message, so that people get text messages now too. So like, as Jay was talking about, a lot of people have the smartphones and stuff like that now. That may be something to look at down the road for us with technology. So you can, whatever you want the text message to be, come out and say that.
Can I add something?
Sure, chief. What do you got?
We have the capability through Code Red to send text messages as long as people signed up for it that way, just so you're aware.
Hey, thanks for getting on that so quickly, chief. Appreciate that.
All over it.
It sounds like an emergency though, code red. Huh? Emergency, yeah. All right. Old business, 39 West State Street.
That has to do with the discussion regarding that sewer connection that Mr. Darcy is contesting. I think at the end of the discussion, you just want to just put on this meeting. Personally, I know I'm not telling the board what to do or advising them what to do, but you had made a decision when the request first came in for the abatement. The answer was, no, you're not going to grant the abatement, and that should be the decision of the board.
So I took some time to the last meeting. I wanted to kind of look at everything and I guess then the board can discuss it as well. The part I struggle with is that it's a capped off line. That is, I mean, that's the part I struggle with. Is that it is actually capped off. It can't be used. Well, okay, so it can be used, but at some point he'd have to uncap it, stuff like that. It's capped off at the line. That's the part I struggle with, is that it's not being used at this point. It's not, you know, so that's the part I struggle with. I looked at everything and I was reading everything. That's the part I struggled with. Trying and kind of listening to what the town council said as defined as a user, but also looking at, you know, there's nothing going into the system at all. That's capped. Well,
We can't prove that it's not being uncapped. So unless he's willing to disconnect it completely, remove it from the building, I'm not inclined
well, I guess
to change my decision.
I guess to I don't know how he'd use it if it's capped, because and then if he decides to use it and he hooks up a bathroom and all that, and he does that without pulling permits, well, that's a whole other concern. That's, you know, that's the only way that can be used legally, is if he pulls permits to install a bathroom for the plumbing and stuff like that, and hook up to the connection.
Correct. And I'm not saying that it's being used. I'm saying that as long as that is in there, the potential is there. And I'm also not saying that he would or would not pull permits and do things legally. There's always that potential as well. So if he wants no part of this, then my decision stands until he removes it from the building.
Yeah, I guess I just struggle that it's a cap system and he's paid to have it installed, but he's not using it. And I kind of looked at it as it's the same thing, like, you know, like if we had the water project come down and they you know, they actually didn't have a connection, but people paid to have.
He has the connection. That's the thing. So if they had the water connection, they'd be paying for it, whether they turn their faucet on or not. Well, there's a meter, but he has the connection there. If we had a metered system, it would be different. We could prove without a doubt that there was nothing going into that system. But as long as it's connected to that building, so it's an easy fix. He can uncap it, or I'm sorry, he can disconnect it from the building and be done with it.
But I don't us, I mean, how would he disconnect it from the building? Just, they'd have to dig a hole and
You did it. Yeah.
Basically, they're.
I can't hear you, Chris.
Chris,
no, he's not.
What you can do is, inside the regulations, is he can turn around and he can turn and physically apply to disconnect from the system. Dig up where it connects to our main that runs in front of his property and disconnect from the pipe. The issue that you're gonna run into, Glenn, and I'm not trying to argue against your position, is that you're gonna open up a window. We have people who are snowbirds who use our system. 6 months out of the year, they go to Florida, 6 months they're here. They're gonna say for that 6 months they're in Florida, they should not be charged a user fee because they're not putting into the system because they are. Even though they're connected, they're not putting anything into the system. And I think you're just opening up a potential for a lot more issues that the position should be. If you're connected to the system, you pay every 6 months for the privilege of being connected to the system. Whether you put stuff in or not, you have that ability. Okay, just like, you know, he used the example of going to Cumberland Farms, you're gonna get gas, you changed your mind, no, you didn't want it, and you drove off. This is more like a hotel. You have the access to use whatever's being there. You choose not to, but you're still gonna pay for having the ability to use it. Okay, that's where I'm coming from on this one.
Interesting. Interesting the way kind of way you put it like that. That you're not using, you have the ability to use it. Again, I struggle with it because it's a cap system. I know someone who's a snowbird, if you will. They have bathrooms, everything's hooked up. It's not a you know, it's not capped off. It's all hooked up. They can use anytime they need to use it. Whatever. This is a system that's capped. It won't be used until if you decide to uncap it.
And again, my opinion is you never should have connected to our main pipe that went down in front of your building. You could have put that pipe in, left it capped, and then when he was ready to install the bathroom, then paid to have it connected to the main. Why did we go all the way to connect it now and then decide we're going to cap it inside the building? You usually don't do that. If you weren't planning on putting a bathroom in, no matter what, you never should have connected to the system.
I think I know his plan, his plan, but the renter's plan was to install a bathroom. I think it was, the cost of the project was too much as to why they didn't do it. From my understanding, I believe that's what he had said, at our last meeting.
But again, wouldn't you have had those costs of what it was going to cost to put a bathroom in before you made that decision to connect to our pipe instead of connecting to his current septic system?
But right now he's using his septic system, right? Must be.
Yes, his septic system was not disconnected when he connected to our pipe. And like town council said, inside the regulations, it says if you connect to our pipe, you're supposed to discontinue use of the septic system on site at that point in time.
So he actually, he'd actually have to dig up the pipe and cap it from the outside.
That's all I'm saying. If he wants to have the pipe there, just do something to disconnect it from the main that runs in front of the building. He can leave the pipe in the ground. He can leave it going into his building. Just disconnect at the main that runs in front of his building. That's all we're saying. And then the bill will go away because he's no longer connected to our system.
So he pays to have it disconnected. Now, does the town do the work? He pays the town, or he can hire a contractor to do it?
He can hire his own person to do it.
Yes.
That was rent or the house was. They spent, for our house
I can't hear what's being said.
Jay, Kathy was talking about a precedent or a prior item, 81 Pleasant Street. They were no longer using the system. However, in order for them to not be billed, they had to, at their own expense, disconnect from the sewer main that ran in front of their property before they would stop being receiving a bill for being connected to our system at their property. I believe the rate is $360 something per EDU per year. So take half of that, would be what, 180 and change every 6 months.
Well, it's interesting what Kathy said too, 'cause that makes me very kind of gone down. It's a little different, but it's the same category, I guess, if you will, where they didn't want to be charged for it, the only way they wouldn't be charged for it, they disconnected. And they were not using it because they were not using the house at all. I know, I guess based on what Kathy had said, we kind of already set a presence as far as that with that there, where the person wasn't living in the house, not doing anything in the house, the only way that they couldn't pay the sewer bill, or didn't have to pay the sewer bill, is if they disconnected from the system, which they ended up doing, correct?
I think the house was taken down,
Oh,
to be honest with you.
oh,
Okay, so, yeah, nobody was in the house. It was gonna be demolished. Kept saying that they're not using it, but in order for us to stop the billing process, he physically had to disconnect from the system.
Yeah, I guess I'm just based on that. I mean, kind of, you said it's not the exact same thing, but it's the case where someone wasn't using it and at all, the house was being torn down, the way they could, quick question though, I guess if the house was torn down and was still hooked up, would they pay the sewer bill? Right, but my question would have been that, so if the house was torn down, the house is still there. Oh. Oh, it's going to be. I don't know. Jay, your thoughts? I don't know if you got a chance to review the last meeting when we discussed this.
I think there was a lot of poor planning and got everybody in this predicament, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, if I'm gonna do a project, I get all the related costs before I make a commitment. That's the way I look at it. And he shouldn't, if he wasn't gonna go through with the bathroom, he shouldn't have spent the $14,000 to do the connection. But now that he spent the $14,000 to do the connection, I don't think he wants to spend another $14,000 to disconnect it. As Chris says, it's costing $180 every 6 months, $360 a year versus another $14,000 to disconnect it. And he's saying he's not using it. I think it's just something that you should just work it, but find a happy medium to this one. And without setting any precedent or anything like that. But the simple reason is, if you want him to disconnect, is it gonna cost him another $14,000?
I wouldn't think so, because disconnect is all they have to do is take a hole in that certain area,
Well, when I listened to
cut
the
the pipe,
tape,
cap it.
well, when I listened to the tape, he said that the sewer, our sewer cover, or our manhole, is in his asphalt on his property, and he's giving the town an easement. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Then if he's gonna disconnect it from our system, he's gonna have to go to where that manhole is, where the asphalt is, and dig it up.
Why couldn't he just right outside his building where the pipe comes in, just right there?
I'm not a civil engineer, so I don't really know, but I'm just using that logic that he's already given the town an easement. We got a manhole in the middle of his asphalt, and he spent $14,000 to put this thing in for his tenant. My wife should get that in a second. Yeah, she's got it. You know, can we work out some agreement that we can stop paying the sewer charges? But, and Chris can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe every business is inspected by our building commissioner every year. And if our building commissioner ever finds that that is connected, he can be double billed for everything from today's date to the day that was found. Back to you.
The concern I have, Jay, is this. The $14,000 figure that he mentioned was because he had to dig a trench from the sewer main that runs in front of his project or in front of his building, all the way back to the building, install a pipe, dig up inside probably the cement floor in order to run the pipe up to where it terminates inside his building. He's not going to have all that cost of trenching and laying of a pipe. All he has to do is dig probably a 3 or 2 by 2 or maybe a 3 by 3 foot hole right where it connects, disconnect, and that's it. As to the easement, that easement was granted back in the early 90s when the pipe was originally put in. So those are recorded at the Registry of Deeds, all those easements. Everybody along 202 gave us an easement for that. So say that don't make them pay. It's not that big of a cost to disconnect. The other issue is he doesn't pay. We still have to pay South Hadley for what they're charging us for his connection. Because in their books, it's a connection. There is nothing, no paperwork that says it's disconnected. So we will still be responsible for whatever South Hadley portion of the sewer user fee is, even though we're not collecting the money from the person at that.
See, that's throw some more light on the subject that was never mentioned before. I don't think the town should be responsible for paying for any resident. If the resident decides to back out, just as you or Kathy or whoever was talking previously stated. I think the address was 81 Pleasant Street, but I could be wrong.
Yes, it was.
Okay, that a house is either coming down or came down, and the only way that they could stop paying the sewer connection is they had to go in and cap the pipe. Is that correct?
Correct.
And he should be doing the same thing. I mean, again, I don't know what it costs or to cap it. You know, he's got to do it outside this building, away from the asphalt. I don't know. Again, I just watched the tape. I wasn't there at the meeting.
Well, I guess so. What Kathy has said, just based on the other property, where that person had a disconnect from the system, so they wouldn't be charged. Like I said, it is a little bit different from what this particular issue is with this pipe. This pipe is capped, but I don't see the town to incur a bill for something that someone wanted and now is not using it based on their own decision not to use it because of the cost to install a bathroom. So I guess that's where I am now. I don't think the town should be responsible for paying the $360 to South Hadley because that becomes our responsibility. It still has to be paid. And the town of South Hadley is where if the system is not show that it's disconnected, then it is. Unless South Hadley tells us, no, you don't have to pay that. The $360 doesn't have to be paid. Where I am right now, that it has to be paid because I can't see the town incurring a bill for someone else for something that someone else wanted and chose not to use it at this particular time. So I guess that's where I am with that. So
I'd be at the same place.
Yeah.
Once they stuck in the stuff about the town having to pay for it.
you didn't know anything about South Hadley, the money.
Sorry. All I needed to know was he wanted it, he got it. I don't care if you're using it, you pay for it. I buy a new pair of shoes, I pay for them. I don't wear them, that's my choice.
Thanks, Jim. From my understanding, it sounds like the board's in an agreement that that the sewer bill will be, it's his responsibility. The only other option for that is for him to disconnect it or for South Hadley to say, no, we're not going to charge you for that based on its capped or something like that. And so that's basically South Hadley's decision. So as long as that is being billed, then we need to charge for it as such. All right. That is what the board said, right? Correctly? I know Jay, that's what you had said. Jen, I know what you said. Okay, all right. All right, well, that's, anything else? No? Okay.
The only thing is, I haven't been available for a little bit. Did Chris tell you that we'll be doing the first floor lights at the school?
Mhm.
Yeah. Good stuff.
I didn't know if Chris had told you guys. Didn't know.
That's okay, because I was on mute, so apparently we'll get this figured out, but, yeah. So that was, it's harder now because people can't see your lips moving, so it's even harder. If you're watching it, no one knows unless someone in the room hears you talking, tells you you're on mute. So it's difficult to kind of keep on watching and paying attention. All right, so, we'll move into executive session. Under chapter 3821-7 of Mass General Laws to discuss HIPAA information. We'll go roll call vote. We'll only come out of the meeting at the executive session to adjourn our meeting. Roll call vote, Sexton, aye.
Silva, aye.
Joyce,
All right, folks, thank you. Have a good night. Take care. Enjoy.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
Right.